meetings of their own, absolutely. So every single one of these should be in place for every club, which is a lot of stuff to have a club. I'd be lying if I said every school entity has these in place for every single club. None of us are perfect at all. But in the perfect world, which I wish it was, yes, every single one would. And you can get to that through time. I mean, a constitution for a small club doesn't have to be a super complicated thing. You could almost have a template that you have your club start out with. There are templates in the back of our manual to kind of start off if you wanted to. But you should get to a point, if you're really trying to do it right, to make sure all of your clubs have all of these things. So remember, at the end of the day, if you have a club that goes inactive, and FCMAT defines an inactive club as a club that has no financial activity for 18 months or more. You might be 24 months. There's no magic number in code. That's our number, 18 months. That money is still sitting there. The club's inactive. What do we do with it? Do we let it keep sitting there? No, right? Somebody should be spending that money. Because the idea of student body was never see how much we can raise and not spend, right? So you really want the students who are raising the money to spend the money on them for the reason they've raised it. But if that club goes inactive, the money still has to be spent. We don't let it sit there year after year because it's not doing students any good at all. So guess who would make the decision on how to spend the money? You. Now, whenever possible, you want to try to spend the money for the same purpose it was raised, right? Sometimes hard if the club is inactive, but if the inactive club raised money for a certain activity that would be done, that there's some way you could still do something similar for the students, you would want to do that. If they raise money for a certain piece of equipment that could still be used by the students, you should do that. Because whenever money's raised, it should be for a purpose, and we want to try to fulfill that purpose. But inactive clubs may not be possible. That purpose isn't there anymore. So then you would try to make a decision about that money that would benefit the most students. Now, even if it doesn't talk about this in the Constitution, this is still legitimate, because remember, you're overseeing the clubs, you have an inactive club, it's part of your student body money, there's something, the money needs to be spent. This would be a good thing to add to your Constitution if it's not there. It makes it much cleaner if people decide to argue with you later on. It's legitimate no matter what, though. It is part of student body, you're overseeing student body, but I would say if you're going to revise your Constitution, let's get that in there. Go ahead.
Question.
Yeah.
So right now when we're talking about the clubs, we're talking like specifically to our club, right? But this also will follow through to any club on campus, right?
This really, what I'm talking about here is really more about any club, right? Because you're still active, so you're raising your money, you're going to spend your money. But this is about other clubs. I mean, they're really reporting up to you, and you can't forget that. It's like a big umbrella, right? They're all down here, and you're on top. So if one of these goes inactive, or several go inactive, or I bet if you looked at your account right now, you probably have money that's been sitting there a really, really, really long time.
Years,
yeah, and that happens everywhere. That money should be spent. You can't assume that club's going to become active again because that's not what we do. It's not what you should do. So yeah, any club that has money that's been sitting out there for a long time that's not an active club, that's a discussion you guys should have as an elected body of what to do with that money. How can you benefit the most students? Not benefit you guys, which you understand, benefit the most students. And that's the thing, because a club raised it, so you want to benefit the students out there. So yeah, so I would go through your accounts, see what's sitting there, see what clubs really aren't active. If you have money that's been sitting there a long time with an active club, they need to spend that money too. Their money. They should spend it. You should push them. And we're going to talk about carryover later. But you want them to spend their money too. It's really not a bank account to see how big we can get it. Okay. So board policy, like I said earlier, the Ed Code says to your college governing board, yes, you can allow student body fundraising in organizations in the college, and they've done that. But remember, you've got the Ed Code, but then whatever board policies are in place at your college, those do apply to your funds as well. And that's important to remember. A lot of times we forget that there's this college out there. Well, we don't forget there's a college out there, but they have rules too.